Well, it's time to go to sleep. But first, let me tell you about the most notorious serial killers in medieval times. You won't believe how brutal some of them were. Between 1346 and 1353, Europe was plagued by the Black Death, a horrible disease that killed millions. And when you have a disease going around that kills almost everyone it touches, it makes people desperate for a cure. And when they are desperate, they will try anything. Unfortunately, one of the things they tried was sacrificing children. That's right. This was the horrible reason behind the child murders committed by the so-called Bluebeard. He was actually called Gilles Garnier, but we'll get to why he earned his other name in a moment. Gilles Garnier was a French peasant who turned butcher. He lived in a village, not far from the city of Nimes, and was married to a woman who had 2 sons. These were his stepchildren, but he also had a son with his wife. However, if you think this story is going to be about how he abused his stepchildren, well, you'd be wrong because he didn't do any such thing. In fact, he was a good stepfather. No, this story is not about that at all. It's about what he did to other people's children. See, after the plague hit France, people believed children could be sacrificed to lift the curse. Garnier took advantage of this belief and kidnapped several young boys. What he did to these boys is where the whole Bluebeard moniker comes from. After abducting the kids, he brought them back to his house, tied them up, and then proceeded to sexually abuse them. When he was done, he cut off their heads and threw their bodies into a nearby river. Their heads, he either boiled or roasted them and then fed the meat to his pigs. This went on for years, and he even bragged about it to the locals. It wasn't long before he was caught. A witness came forward and told the authorities what he'd seen. They searched his home and found the remains of his victims, which ended the nice guy act. Garnier pleaded not guilty, but there was enough evidence to convict him. He was executed by having rocks dropped on him until he died. Yeah, no wonder they don't celebrate Butcher's Day anymore. But while our next killer only killed women, he probably wasn't much nicer than Bluebeard. Meet Matteo Falcon, one of Italy's most infamous serial killers. His killing spree started in 1889 when he strangled a prostitute to death. He was never caught, though, so he kept killing. In the early 1890s, 8 women were found dead in the Italian city of Florence. All of them had been strangled, and police believed the same person was responsible for all of them. But no matter how hard they looked, they couldn't find any evidence that would lead them to Falcon, or any witnesses that could link the crimes to a specific suspect. The case went cold, or so everyone thought. Then in 1892, another woman was found dead. She was an old friend of the first victim, and it soon became obvious that Matteo was still at large. Things really picked up in 1894 when 2 more women were murdered. Police were able to track down Falcone and put him on trial. He was charged with 9 murders, but acquitted of all of them. Somehow the jury believed his alibi. Maybe they just didn't like cops. He continued his killing spree after being acquitted, murdering 4 more women before finally being caught in 1907. This time he didn't get off. He was sentenced to life in prison, where he spent the rest of his days planning new murders. Yep, he was still at it in prison. In total, he was responsible for at least 21 deaths, but may have killed as many as 60. A man named Pedro Lopez was able to get away with killing hundreds of girls. He was a Colombian serial killer who lived between 1905 and 2002. During that time, he managed to elude the police and kill hundreds of young girls. While living in Colombia, Lopez reportedly abducted, raped and killed at least 300 girls. The youngest girl he ever murdered was just 7 years old. Many people think his actual body count was much higher, but those are the killings he confessed to when he was finally caught. What makes Lopez's case so weird is that he stopped killing for extended periods of time. He went almost 30 years without committing a single murder. He would then go on a killing spree, sometimes murdering over 300 girls in less than a year. He was known as the Monster of the Andes and the Beast of the Sierra Nevada. One day, the police caught up with Lopez. He was arrested and taken to jail. While in custody, he told the police where he buried some of his victims. At first, he said he'd killed 300 girls, but later recanted his statement and said it was just 150. The Colombian government was afraid he would hurt more girls if he got out, so they gave him 3 life sentences plus 40 years just to be safe. Some people say he's still in prison, but others say he escaped again. Who knows? Our next serial killer should have gotten the executioner's axe, but he was so clever he avoided punishment. Jacob Israel was born in Germany in 1780. As a kid, he loved nothing more than animals. This love of animals led him to become a tanner. This was a job where he could work with animal skins. However, Israel had a sick obsession with human flesh, and since he couldn't get it legally, he decided to get it illegally. How do you get human flesh without killing someone? Well, Israel figured it out. He developed a process where he would take newly buried corpses, dig them up and sell the meat to unsuspecting customers. He operated in Berlin and sold his product through street vendors and taverns. Sometimes he would serve it to unsuspecting guests without telling them what it was. They claimed it tasted very much like pork. It's not clear how many people fell victim to Israel's grave robbing and cannibalism, but it was quite a few. He was eventually caught and put on trial. Amazingly, he convinced the judge and jury that he was innocent. They let him go free, but when he returned to his hometown, the townspeople weren't happy about what he'd done. They beat him up and left him for dead. He recovered, though, and spent the rest of his life traveling from place to place, always staying on the run. To this day, no one knows what happened to him. We have one more killer to go, and he takes the cake for the weirdest motive. Giovanni Angelelli was an Italian serial killer who lived in the 19th century. He was a former hatter who had lost his job because of, you guessed it, a chemical imbalance. Angelelli had learned how to make felt hats during his time as a hatter. However, he used a process that required mercury. This is a highly toxic substance, and it caused him to go insane. Mercury poisoning can lead to tremors, insomnia, muscle weakness, and memory loss. So it seems he was already suffering from some serious mental issues. Once he lost his job, he decided to make hats at home. Soon he was selling these hats throughout the countryside. However, he was hiding something inside the hats: human skin. Angelelli had taken his wife to the hospital because she was mentally ill. When she was discharged, he cut off her skin and used it to line his hats. Then he started killing other women and doing the same thing. He was finally caught when a customer found human hair in his hat. When the authorities searched his home, they found a big secret. In total, he was responsible for killing 7 women. They never did figure out what exactly snapped him. And now, it's time for bed. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. We'll see you next time.